Have you ever noticed how our mind wants to measure all our experiences through our senses? Through what we see, what we hear, taste, touch, smell, etc. And then it labels those experiences, creates definitions and boundaries to make sense of the world. And then it applies the same lens everywhere. When it comes to experiences of the divine, our mind wants to measure them. So it asks questions like, where does it start and where does it end? The experience of Shiva dismantles the very premise of such questions. As per Purans, once Brahma and Vishnu were having an argument over who is greater. Shiva didn't argue, but manifested as a pillar of fire, stretching above and below beyond sight. Now Brahma wanted to measure Shiva, that how far up Shiva has gone. So he takes the form of a swan and flies up. Vishnu wants to see how deep Shiva has gone. So he takes form of a boar and burrows down. After searching for an eternity, they both couldn't find the end points of Shiva. And they realized that there is no end to Shiva. Shiva is infinite. In the same way, our mind wants to measure Shiva, but is unable to. The only thing that we can do is surrender. Coming back to the story in the Purans, Shiva then manifests in another form. The fire cools down and solidifies in the form of a linga. There's a place in South India, Arunachala. It's a hill. It's said to be a manifestation of Shiva, a naturally occurring linga. Now, when we talk about Arunachala, we have to talk about Ramana Maharshi, the great Indian sage and Jivan Mukta, somebody who got liberated while he was still alive. Ramana Maharshi was called by Arunachala. When he was 16 years old, he experienced spiritual death. And he felt that he's not this body and he's not even this mind, but something beyond both. So he left home and went to Arunachala as if he was invited by Shiva, because he never looked back. And for the rest of his life, he pointed seekers towards one question: who am I? Now, it's not that simple for all of us to just sit in silence and inquire on that. So for seekers like us, Ramana Maharshi composed a hymn known as Arunachala Aksharamanamallai, which is a garland of words, a garland of verses circling around Arunachala, that is Shiva. It's the same as how devotees in India circle around a sacred place, a temple, or even a tree. In the same way, Ramana Maharshi is circling around Arunachala, not physically, but through his words, just to give us a glimpse of Shiva's grace. On this occasion of Maha Shivratri, I would like to explore a few verses of this hymn with all of you. O Arunachala, thou art one who showers grace greater than one's own mother. Is this then thy grace? In this verse, Ramana Maharshi is comparing Shiva's grace to our own mother's grace. But he also wants to create a sense of confusion, because he says, or rather asks, is this then thy grace? Now, mother's grace, we know that it will protect us. It will shield us. It will soothe us. It will say that you are wonderful. So it will reinforce our identity, our ego, because it is tied to our mother's identity and mother's ego. But Shiva's grace does not do that. Shiva does not want to reinforce our identity. He wants to completely dissolve it. And so when we are faced with a difficult situation, he may send more fire towards us so that we completely burn our false identity. So Shiva's grace is not sentimental. And hence, the devotee may question that, is this your grace? Because it doesn't seem like, at least in the short term. The most difficult situations that I faced in my life, I completely disliked them at that point in time. But now, looking back, they made me humbler. They made me overcome my fears. They gave me the urge to develop some skills that will help me throughout my life. So, such indeed is thy grace, because he can see what you cannot see in the present moment. O Arunachala, reveal thy beauty, so that the mind, which is by nature roving, may grow still, seeing thee uninterruptedly. In this verse, Ramana Maharshi is talking about our wandering mind, which is constantly moving to the next project, next achievement, next person to meet. Ramana Maharshi is asking Shiva to reveal himself in such an overwhelming way that our mind stops in its tracks and gets completely absorbed in the experience of Shiva there and then. Now, this beauty that he's asking Shiva to reveal could be a physical manifestation of Shiva, like Arunachala, which evokes awe in the devotees, and that helps them anchor their mind. Or it could be the more direct experience of Shiva, like the one Ramana Maharshi had when he was 16 years old. He is not indicating that Shiva is hiding somewhere and needs to reveal himself in front of us. Our mind is so busy that we are unable to experience Shiva. So all he's asking Shiva to do is give us an experience that will make us surrender enough so that we can experience what is already there in front of us. O Arunachala, thou art the meaning of the sacred syllable Om. Thou art without equal or superior. Who can understand thee? Om represents the primordial vibration. It is the all-pervading sound of the existence itself. Now, Arunachala, which is a manifestation of Shiva, is a physical manifestation of Om as well. And something which is whole, which is all-pervading. What can be greater than that? What can be separate from that? That is the feeling that is expressed in the question that this verse ends with. Who can understand thee? It's not a question. It is an admission of surrender that the mind cannot understand thee. The mind cannot understand Shiva, which is whole. because mind has its limits. So mind is not separate from Shiva, but it's also not going to be able to understand Shiva in the way that it understands this material reality. Shiva can only be experienced. O Arunachala, let this mind, now attached to the world, become attached to the whole and be wedded to the whole. Do bestow thy grace. Our mind is attached to this world. There's no doubt about that. But this engagement with the world will only give us fragmented experiences. To experience something whole, we need to detach our mind from these worldly experiences and attach it to those experiences which make us feel whole. Now, this attachment to the experiences of wholeness is not like we start worshipping them. We need to be wedded to them in a very sacred, mystical way, where there is no separation between us and the experience. O Arunachala, before I perish on account of the poison of Maya, which has gripped me, reaching my head, please shower thy grace on me, so that I may seek thy grace. In this verse, there is a sense of urgency expressed that spiritual awakening cannot be postponed. It's not something that we can pursue after our retirement, or after our kids get married, or after we buy that property. There's a very powerful line here which says, please shower thy grace on me, so that I may seek thy grace. It conveys that this spiritual longing, the longing for union, this longing for spiritual truth, does not come to you before you have Shiva's grace. That means if you're feeling this longing, Shiva has already called you. It is not something that we can decide to do or choose to do. There is no ego involved in it. O Arunachala, in the common space where there is neither going nor coming, show me the battle that is waged by grace. In this verse, Ramana Maharshi is talking about a space which is common. We can't make boundaries in the space like we do in the physical space. And one cannot go to the space and come back from it, right? And it's not because we don't have the means to do that or we don't have the technology to do that. But it's not a physical space at all. It's a state of consciousness where Shiva's grace is received. The nature of this grace is such that it makes us realize that there was no separation, no battle in the first place. Imagine a drop of water in a bottle. This bottle is floating over the ocean surface, but the drop wants to dissolve in the ocean. The nature of Shiva's grace is such that it will break that bottle and let the drop dissolve in the ocean. Maha Shivratri is a night of awakening to this truth. It's a night of intensity which lets us, the drop, dissolve into the ocean that is Shiva consciousness. This is a night of vigilance where we must resist the pull of distractions and be completely absorbed in the Shiva consciousness, even if it is for just a few minutes or a few hours. Now, I invite you to sit in silence for the next few minutes and absorb all that we learned in this video today. Om